Giridharidhari Gopi Janavallabha Giridharidhari Suranandana Braja Janaranjana Yasodanandana Braja Janaranjana Jamunatira Vanachari Jamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Janavallabha Giridharidhari Gopi Janavallabha Giridharidhari Yasodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yasodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yasodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Jayo Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Sri Sri Radha Madhava ki Sri Sri Radha Giridhari ki Sri Ekadasi Bharat ki Jayo Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivraj Gaja Shodhara Shishi Maharaj Dvangai Savai Jalanara Vind Bhakti Vedanta Swami Shri Prabhupada ki Jai Jayo Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivraj Gaja Shodhara Shishi Maharaj Dvangai Shri Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada ki Jai Grantara srimadbhagavatam ki Jai Samaveda Bhakti ki Jai Go Premanandi All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories, Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. Mahaprabhu, can I ask a favor of you? Because I forgot to bring it. You know the pujarim, that green bag I wear? If you just grab the whole bag and bring it out here, I have some notes for class, and I forgot to pull them out of the bag. Following Srila Prabhupada, I think.
Huh?
I think they've been following Srila Prabhupada.
Yes, I heard that.
So.
Use this, but it has nothing to do with it.
Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayat. So this morning we're reading from the srimadbhagavatam, 4th Canto, 18th chapter, text 29, and we'll actually finish the chapter. There's a few verses here, pretty much the similar subject matter. So, beginning with verse 29. Chunayan swadanushkotya girikutani rajarat bhumandalam idam vainya prayas chakre samam vibhuhu chunayam swadanushkotya girikutani rajarat bhumandalam idam vainya prayas chakre samam vibhuhu chunayan swadanushkotya girikutani rajarat bhumandalam idam vainya prayas chakre samam vibhuhu chunayam swadanushkotya girikutani rajarat bhumandalam idam vainya prayas chakre samam vibhuhu. I would like to chant. Chunayan swadanushkotya girikutani rajarat bhumandalam idam vainya prayas chakre samam vibhuhu. Chunayan swadanushkotya girikutani rajarat bhumandalam idam vainya prayas chakre samam vibhuhu. What else? Chunayan swadanushkotya girikutani rajarat bhumandalam idam vainya prayas chakre samam vibhuhu. Anyone else? Okay. Synonyms. Chunayan, making into pieces. Swa, his own. Dhanukotya, by the power of his bow. Giri, of the hills. Kutani, the tops. Rajarat, the emperor. Bhumandalam, the whole earth. Idam, this. Vainya, the son of Vena. Praya, almost. Chakre, made. Samam, level. Vibhuhu, the powerful. Translation, purport. After this, the king of all kings, Maharaj Prithu, leveled all rough places on the surface of the globe by breaking up the hills with the strength of his bow. By his grace, the surface of the globe almost became flat. Purport. Generally, the mountains and hilly portions of the earth are made flat by the striking of thunderbolts. I guess that's few and far in between, right? But I guess that's how it happens. Generally, this is the business of King Indra of the heavenly planets, but King Prithu, an incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, did not wait for King Indra to break up the hills and mountains, but did so himself by using his strong bow. Text 30. Translation. To all the citizens of the state, King Prithu was as good as a father. Thus he was visibly engaged in giving them proper subsistence and proper employment for subsistence. After leveling the surface of the globe, he embarked earmarked different places for residential quarters inasmuch as they were desirable. Text 31. In this way, the king founded many types of villages, settlements, and towns, and built forts, residences for cowherdsmen, stables for the animals, and places for the royal camps, mining places, agricultural towns, and mountain villages. Let's see. Text 32. Before the reign of King Prithu, there was no planned arrangement for different cities, villages, pasturing grounds, etc. Everything was scattered and everyone constructed his residential quarters according to his own convenience. Sounds like India, right? Just wherever you want to. However, since King Prithu, plans were made for towns and villages. Purport. From this statement, it appears that town and city planning is not new, but has been coming down since the time of King Prithu. In India, we can see regular planning methods evident in very old cities. In Srimadbhagavatam, there are many descriptions of such ancient cities. Even 5,000 years ago, Lord Krishna's capital, Dwarka, was well planned, and similar other cities, Mathura and Hastinapur, now New Delhi, were also well planned. Thus, the planning of cities and towns is not a modern innovation, but was existing in bygone ages. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purports of the 4th canto, 18th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled Prithu Maharaj Milks the Earth Planet. Om Agyan Timirandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chaksulan Minitam Nirataismai Sri Gurve Namaha Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivashati Gaur Bhaktivedanta Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Vanchakapatarupaśtya kripa sindhu beva chapatidanam bhavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. With the blessings and kind wishes of the devotees, I'll try to say a few words. Now, besides Dravida Prabhu, does anyone else have a device with them? I was hoping there'd be a few devotees here because I was going to give 3 different devotees things to look up, to reference, because I didn't bring any books. Would you have a phone or with you? Okay. I want you to look up, okay, Srimad Bhagavatam 9:11:26, 10:41:20. Yes, and I have a third one, which is Dwarka. That's also. Okay, that's 10:69, 1 through 12. And we'll have you read these when it comes time. First one was 10:41:20, 10th canto, and the other one was 10:69, 1 through 12. Just 1, 10:69, 1, first verse of the 69th chapter. These are descriptions of Ayodhya, Mathura, and Dwarka, as Prabhupada's referring to here in the purport. So, there's a few things here. Well, the simplest thing is the fact that Prabhupada is making the point that planning of cities and towns and villages, civic planning is not something new, that people were just barbarians up to a certain part of time, and then now we're very, very civilized. Of course, there's an argument there. I remember Sadhaputta once referred to modern cities as industrial hellholes. So when we have places where people live that are industrial hellholes, how advanced are we, right? The air you can't breathe, everything's cement, there's no parks, this, that. This is horrible, right? It's so mode of passion and ignorance. No one's peaceful. They're just rushing around. And the very places they built for their own habitation are ugly. Ugly, just made of cement and glass and this and that. And as far as every once in a while they'll put a little park, a little tiny park or something, which usually smells like dog poop in the cities, right? Or homeless people are living there. Homeless people are enjoying the park, but right? So what is this kind of planning? You'd expect that, we're very, very advanced, everyone have a very beautiful place to live. But no, they're just horrible industrial hellholes, simply meant for economic development. Herd as many people in as possible in one place and work them to death. That's actually what's going on. That's their modern economy. It used to be all. Previously, cities were founded in such a way where there was no very light industries, and it was based on agriculture. And the size of the cities could only be planned according to how much agriculture. You see these spread out because they didn't have trucks and this and that. So those farmers had to be able to get that produce into the city within a day or so. Whereas now, the trucks and all that, and produce is being flown in from all over the world. What do they say if something happens? There's about 3 or 4 days of produce in the city. That's it. Because the turnover is so fast. They got to keep all these trucks keep coming in. Yes, then we go to that step, the processed food and so on. But even that, maybe a week or 10 days. Because even sitting out here at 3:30 in the morning chanting my rounds, 2 or 3 of these big trucks roll by. They've been down here unloading at the Ralphs or this or that. It's just a constant, and if that stops for some reason, then there's big, big problems in the cities. Okay. So today we're all practicing. So, Prabhupada says in the purport, there are descriptions of how beautiful these cities were, and of course it's described. Now, Maharaj Prithu appeared millions of years ago, millions and millions of years ago, but it's still saying, I guess it's Treta Yuga. In Satya Yuga, people were very, very, mostly just yogis and kind of very mode of goodness, self-realized persons, so there's no need for big, big cities and this and that. People just happy to engage in self-realization. So, ashrams and little villages and this and that, so there was no need. But Prithu Maharaj, at this time, he made these arrangements, and also he flattened the earth with his bow, which is quite amazing. Now they have these big, they call them earth movers. They're so big that you have pictures of a guy who's 6 feet tall next to the tire, and the tire is twice as big as he is, and they just plow down the hills and so on. I was just in Seattle recently, and Seattle's a very interesting history. That even till recent times, it's a continuous chain of mistakes. Yeah, it's a place that's very, very hilly, and the reason it was founded was because of the bay, and also the families that came from Illinois or someplace like that. They are offered. Because what happened was it was a territory of the United States, but Russia has all his territory also, like Alaska and all that, and both disputed where the line was. So whoever could settle the areas first, and they said, we've already settled here, it's ours. And if this wasn't done, this woman in Seattle said she'd be they'd be speaking Russian, more or less. So anyways, the U.S. government said anyone who wants to come and settle will give each person like 1,000 acres. So there's 2 or 3 families came and they founded Seattle, and they all got thousands and thousands of acres. But that place is just a bunch of hills, And so they decided first place it was down below the hills, it happened to be tidal plains. So they built the city there, and all the water kept coming in and flooding everything. And all these comedy of errors, and not comedy, it was very, very unfortunate. But they had this one picture, the way they were breaking down the hills. They had these big, big water, like pumps, cannons, and just washing it away, and all that mud just be flowing into the sea. But they're breaking down the hills, and by that time it was settled, and some people didn't want that to happen. So what was it called? Something domain? What is that called? When they can just take your land? Eminent domain. So they didn't go for it. So instead they said, okay. So what they did is pictures of these big mansions on this little hill all by itself with nothing around it. No way to get to it, no roads. And then the city said, well, your house is worth nothing. We're just going to take it now. And people are just stuck. They should have sold when they had a chance. So anyways, this is what they did. They just washed it down, washed the hills down. to what you have today. And even if you go to Seattle, it's like San Francisco. They don't tell you that. Big hills and everything like that. You got to walk uphill like this. But it's a big comedy of errors and so on of civil engineering, because the people who came actually weren't civil engineers. They just had different ideas of how to build a town, and it was unbelievable, just flooding all the time with the tide planes and so on. But what I want to read first, and then we'll talk a little bit about the Bhagavatam and what people are saying happened about that time, is there are some descriptions here of, Prabhupada says, these beautiful cities. So the first one, do you have the microphone? You hand that to, no, it's right here. Prabhu, Jamal, you're going to read the first selection from your phone, from the Bhagavatam. This is a short description of Ayodhya, 9th canto, 11th chapter, text 26 and 27, eloquently recited by Jamal.
During the reign of Lord Ramachandra, the streets of the capital Ayodhya were sprinkled with perfumed water and drops of perfumed liquor, thrown about by elephants from their trunks. When the citizens saw the Lord personally supervising the affairs of the city in such opulence, they appreciated this opulence very much.
That's the full verses. That's 26, 27.
The palaces, the palace gates, the assembly houses, the platforms for meeting places, the temples, and all such places were decorated with golden water pots and bedecked with various types of flags.
Imagine how long golden water pots would last outside. Okay. The next one is Mathura. This is 1041, 2023. Prabhupada mentions Dwarka and Mathura.
Hare Krishna. Okay. That one's over here. 1040, 20 to 23? 41, 20 to 23?
Yeah, 20 to 23.
The Lord saw Mathura with its tall gates and household entrances made of crystal, its immense archways and main doors of gold, its granaries and other storehouses of copper and brass, and its impregnable moats. Beautifying the city were pleasant gardens and parks. The main intersections were fashioned of gold, and there were mansions with private pleasure gardens, along with guild halls and many other buildings. Mathura resounded with the calls of peacocks and pet turtle doves, who sat in the small openings of the lattice windows and on the gem-studded floors, and also on the columned balconies and on the ornate rafters in front of the houses. These balconies and rafters were adorned with Vaidurya stones, diamonds, crystal quartz, sapphires, coral, pearls, and emeralds. All the royal avenues and commercial streets were sprinkled with water, as were the side roads and courtyards, and flower garlands, newly grown sprouts, parched grains, and rice had been scattered everywhere. Gracing the houses' doorways were elaborately decorated pots filled with water, which were bedecked with mango leaves, smeared with yogurt and sandalwood paste, and encircled by flower petals and ribbons. Near the pots were flags, rows of lamps, bunches of flowers, and the trunks of banana and bailnut trees. Wow, what a description.
Krishna and Balaram are going into Mathura, that's what they're saying. And then the last one is Dwarka. Prabhupada refers to Dwarka. That's the 1069, 1 through 12.
Sukadeva Goswami said, hearing that Lord Krishna had killed Narakasura and had alone married many brides, Narada Muni desired to see the Lord in this situation. He thought, it is quite amazing that in a single body Lord Krishna simultaneously married 16,000 women, each in a separate palace. Thus the sage of the demigods eagerly went to Dwarka. The city was filled with the sound of birds and bees flying about the parks and pleasure gardens, while its lakes, crowded with blooming Indivara, Amboja, Kahlara, Kumada, and Utpala lotuses, resounded with the calls of swans and cranes. Dwarka boasted 900,000 royal palaces, all constructed with crystal and silver and splendorously decorated with huge emeralds. Inside these palaces, the furnishings were bedecked with gold and jewels. Traffic moved along a well-laid-out system of boulevards, roads, intersections, and marketplaces, and many assembly houses and temples of demigods graced the charming city. The roads, courtyards, commercial streets, and residential patios were all sprinkled with water and shaded from the sun's heat by banners waving from flagpoles. In the city of Dwarka was a beautiful private quarter worshipped by the planetary rulers. This district, where the demigod Vishwakarma had shown all his divine skill, was the residential area of Lord Hari, and thus it was gorgeously decorated by the 16,000 palaces of Lord Krishna's queens. Narada Muni entered one of these immense palaces. Supporting the palace were coral pillars decoratively inlaid with Vaidurya gems. Sapphires bedecked the walls, and the floors glowed with perpetual brilliance. In that palace, Trashta had arranged canopies with hanging strands of pearls. There were also seats and beds fashioned of ivory and precious jewels. In attendance were many well-dressed maidservants bearing lockets on their necks, and also armor-clad guards with turbans, fine uniforms, and jeweled earrings. The glow of the numerous jewel-studded lamps dispelled all darkness in the palace. My dear king, on the ornate ridges of the roof danced loudly crying peacocks, who saw the fragrant aguru incense escaping through the holes of the lattice windows and mistook it for a cloud.
Here's a description of very beautiful civic planning. Even today, there people are trying to, newer towns and cities and so on, they're trying to do this a little bit more, understanding the importance of having open spaces. And Prabhupada explains as a principle of Ayurveda that the subtle mind is affected by space, by water. There's three different things. And the fact that people are living too close together, they're not bathing, different things like that means the mind becomes disturbed. And so just trying to have these kinds of things, a lot of open space. And of course, there's always a battle between environmentalists and developers, right? Trying to utilize every single space they possibly can to put a building on it to make some money, to the detriment of the population. So there's just some different instances of how beautiful these cities were. And of course, many people say, oh, this is mythology. One thing is, we're saying millions of years ago there was a king, and according to the modern theory, that modern human beings didn't even exist back then. So we can't accept this as being truth. In fact, human beings didn't even exist this many millions of years ago. Modern human beings, that's what they say. Of course, there is evidence to the contrary. Evidence to the contrary. I'm just reading one instance that right here in California, there's Mount Whitney, which is the highest mountain, not only in California, but in the contiguous United States. It was named after Miss Dr. Whitney, who was the head archaeologist in California. And during the gold rush up in that area, Sutton, that whole area and so on, there were some mines, and in those mines, the miners found these different artifacts in the mines inside the mountain. And he, as a very head archaeologist in the state, identified them all. And it happened to be, these are the kinds of tools and spearheads and this and that belonging to modern man. And it went back millions and millions of years. Yeah, this was a little article by Dhruta Karma. And he wrote a whole report on it. And he was blasted in the pages of like Scientific American or Archaeology Today or something back then by some big archaeologist, saying that Mr. Whitney, if he actually had any brain substance, I'm paraphrasing, he would never have written this article, because more or less it's accepted that the theory of evolution is true. And to him writing an article that he'd actually found and identified the strata being millions and millions of years old. So more or less what the scientist was saying was that if it doesn't agree with our theory, it can't be true. But it was true. Knowledge filter. So there's many different examples like this, so many different examples like this. So we don't accept that our modern anthropologists or this or that are giving real knowledge. Something's wrong. There is an argument for the fact, and also even the idea that their scenario is based upon extensive research is not true at all. Sariputta points out the amount of sediment that they've gone through, on this planet to substantiate the theory of evolution is insignificant, like less than 1%. He makes a funny analogy about if you had 100 anthropologists or paleontologists breaking up rocks, over the course of how many years they'd break up this many, a square mile or something like that, like John Henry, he said, just going. It would just be insignificant. It'd take them like 80 years, 100 of them, to just do 1 square mile, and there's thousands and thousands of square miles of sediment with all kinds of stuff in it. So it's very, very scanty amount of information that they are basing their whole idea of evolution and what really transpired on this planet over the last thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, or millions of years. So we accept the Vedic version as being perfect, and it's interesting that their version, it keeps changing, keeps adjusting and changing, and they're hiding information, or just or don't want to talk about things. And just actually, these artifacts, Judah Karma says that they would not give. They're in a museum here in California, but they wouldn't give any pictures or anything like that. Well, let anyone see them. Yeah, then later on he got into seeing because he said he was doing a presentation, an archaeological symposium somewhere in the world, so he got in to finally see them, and he points out another place, a similar museum in Europe somewhere. It's in a back room somewhere, and it's all marked with the wrong dates. Or just like they give that example of the spearheads found in Mexico by that, I think her name was McIntyre or something. When Sariputta was working on his first book, Madhavendra Puri called the woman and asked if they could use pictures of those spearheads. And what happened is she found them. The American archaeology, people came down and identified like 200,000 years old. And people weren't even supposed to, modern man's not supposed to be in the New World until about 10,000 years ago. Not even existent since 30,000 years. So anyways, that's what they found. And she was threatened, really, more or less. She'd lose her whole professional career if it got out. And so anyway, she told Madhavendra Puri, you can use pictures of that, but only if you use the date 30,000 years, not the fringe lunatic date of 200,000 years. So Sariputta makes up the point. No one ever dated in about 30,000 years. But that's what they told her to tell people. And that's why in Forbidden Archaeology you have drawings of those spear points. Because that's what they found. They're 200,000 years old.
So they make drawings and data.
Yeah, because they couldn't use the photographs. So it's interesting because no one ever dated it at 30,000 years. So what's going on here?
Fake news.
Fake news. What's going on? Alternate truth. So anyways, we accept what the Bhagavatam says. And it's interesting, just think about it. How are you going to verify it anyways? Was it empirically verify that it's true or false? This is things going on millions of years ago. We're not. And on one end, it's important because it's the Vedic view, but in our day-to-day life, how are we going to verify this story or that story empirically? We can't, so we have to believe in something else, and that's the Krishna's words. And that's our authority, not our senses. And that's why Sariputta makes the point that even things that agree with the Vedic view, we don't accept them as being truth either, because everything's imperfect. Everything's imperfect. Our senses are imperfect, our minds are imperfect, our ability to understand this world is imperfect. So Prabhupada says, very safe. We just accept the Vedic view, what's coming down from the acharyas, and go forward. So, keep an eye on the time over there. Another point is that the Maharaj Prithu was very, very, he kept everyone engaged. You see it says that? Everyone, my thing just turned off because it's doing an update or something, which I didn't ask it to do. Kept everyone engaged for their subsistence. That's the one of the responsibilities of someone who's in charge, to keep everyone engaged. Whether it's a political leader or someone running the ashram or a business, everyone has to be engaged for their own welfare, not just for earning a livelihood, but just like in the ashram, probably make the statement's always there. An idle mind is devil's workshop. So everyone, for their own sake, has to be nicely engaged in something constructive for themselves and for others. And that's the business of whoever is in charge. So it says here, Maharaj Prithu, he made arrangements to making sure everyone is engaged. That's very, very important. We should always do that for ourselves, that we're nicely engaged, and also if we're in a position of some type of management or authority, it's one of the most important things is to make sure everyone is properly engaged. So any other questions or comments? And I guess we can also just try to make sure the temple always looks very, very beautiful, like Dwarka or Ayodhya, Hastinapur, Mathura. It's very, very pleasing. Architecture has ability to actually make people's minds, just like the devotees would be walking in Balboa Park with Srila Prabhupada. One devotee said, "Oh, Prabhupada, it's like Vrindavan." And Prabhupada said, "No, it's like Dwarka." It's just so beautiful, nice buildings, wide lanes, fountains, all these things, trees and birds and flowers. Immediately the mind. Why is it? It's an international destination, Balboa Park. Why? Such a beautiful place. The zoo is there also, and they've made that very beautiful for not only the human beings but the animals. So everyone likes the beautiful. Yes, the ones in the cage and out of the cage, keep them all very calm. So, and if we have a living, either a home or workplace or how the town is planned or not planned, it affects people's minds. Wasn't it a story about in New York City? I don't know who was it. Who was that? Who's the one? Begins with a G. The mayor, Giuliano. Someone brought the crime way down, and I heard one of the things he did was just like by fixing all these windows and things like that, just making it look nicer. People started having a little bit of civic pride and changed. Just by changing a few things like that. It didn't solve the whole problem completely, but just little things like that. So if you live in a place that's dirty and unkept and this and that and messy, that that affects the consciousness. And just the opposite. If it's always very clean and beautiful and so on, oh, so nice. So those are things that contemplate. Yes.
Just along that line.
Hare Krishna. Oh boy. So I've had several experiences on either side of that. I lived on the island for many years, and there's open spaces, it's got the low buildings. Then I lived in Manhattan for a year, and just the height of the buildings, I was very conscious of the kind of the oppressiveness of it, I flew to India one year on I forget what the airline was, but we went through Bucharest, Romania. It was a $700 flight. Now they have $500 flight to China. And we had a day layover in Bucharest. And they had just thrown off, it was the early 90s, they had just thrown off the yoke of the Soviet Union, But the architecture was like Soviet. You walk outside and all these tall buildings, they reminded me of big radiators, There was no awareness of any of this kind of thing. It was just stacking the people together, And it was so oppressive. Just to see that kind of architecture, and the people reflected it too. Everybody was wearing these. All the men were wearing these black leather coats because that was the uniform for the secret police. So they thought, well, this is the closest we're going to get to power or something, But you didn't know who was really police. It was like the whole thing, We spent a day there in Bucharest, and we got out and came to India, But I experienced the architecture was so key, you know. And I was just in Potomac. You've been to that temple, Potomac?
No. Q Street was there.
It's as we were flying in, you know, to the Dulles Airport, I noticed, you know, you can see from high up, you can see the terrain, you know, and it was all green and everything. But I noticed it wasn't like agriculture, because it was all this land and then there was a little house, all this land. Oh, this is very wealthy people with big estates, you know. But the Potomac Temple is in the middle of that. Is that you look at these houses, huge houses with huge lawns and everything around there, you know. And as you said, the rich people, they try to create an atmosphere of that, of foliage and peace and opulence, and you know, but they have no idea how to really do it. So it's very important, like you say.
So we can end here. All glories to Srila Prabhupada, Shri Ekadasi Bhakti ki.